Speaking of Mercury, Gatorade. Where is Code? Try move it. Uh, Someone scotch. Of course, during this Streamlab wanted to update it.
Got a video game you might be interested in, Jay.
Mm.
It's called Metal Hellsinger.
Well, I'm already interested. What's it about?
You know those games that are like BPM games, like you do music beat and you do shit?
Yeah, like Crypta the Necrodancer. Like I was really into that game. I have
This is
the
a first person.
I have the Cadence
It's a
of
first
Hyrule.
person.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying I have the Cadence of Hyrule on my wish list on Switch for when it goes on sale, so I can grab that. I love rhythm games like that, like the rhythm fighting games.
A first-person shooter, hell demon shooter game that you do to metal music, and you can only shoot in time with it.
I feel like I read about that game like forever ago. I remember reading an article about some people who are developing a game like that. It's kind of cool. It's like if you were playing Doom, but you were like killing people to the beat of the soundtrack of Doom, which sounds amazing.
Except it's in hell, and you're a soul who just landed in there, and apparently you have a score to settle. So you just come to hell and just go and fucking start killing everything.
That's what's up.
And your character is female, called the Unknown. And I guess you're looking for Ronald Reagan.
You're looking for Ronald Reagan in hell?
That's my joke. That's my joke.
I haven't heard anything.
They took her voice and she wanted it back. So she killed everything in her fucking way. Pretty good story so far.
Man.
But apparently in hell they take what you love the most.
Speaking of stories, we actually just watched Morbius today. Vampire. I like vampires. Like that's kind of like supernatural creature of choice. So I like to watch anything that has vampires. And like Morbius, it got shit reviews. Like everyone like shit all over this movie, and I'm like, well, usually when people shit on a movie, like I like it. So, we watched it today, and like it was like good, right? Like the concept was neat, but like the plot was just like he has a thing happen to it. It was just like the base like superhero origin story kind of bullshit. I was like, oh god, drives me a little crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a game or a movie has to have a good plot in order for me to really get sucked into it, or else I kind of tune out. I like a good story.
What about a good gameplay loop though?
Oh yeah, I mean like I'm not exclusively just art because I also don't have story driven content. But I usually don't get as engaged with them. Like I can't play them for long periods of time.
Yeah.
I guess with like an RPG, like it's the story that keeps you going. It's the story that keeps you playing for 6 hours.
I was gonna say you probably played a lot of Final Fantasy growing up, didn't you?
Interestingly enough, I did not play Final Fantasy until like as I got older, like into college and even now. Like right now I'm working through like I played the remake of 7. I never played the original 7. I enjoyed the remake a lot because we got it for free on PlayStation Plus, so I was like, hell yeah, play through this.
When did we get it for free?
Months ago. I know you bought it new when it came out, didn't you?
Of course I did.
Yeah. Yeah, like we got it for free, and so like I played through it, and I was like, this was dope. And then that kind of inspired me to play 10 is what I'm working on. But man, game is a grind fest. I tried playing 3 years ago on. They remade 3 for DS.
Remake which? Oh yeah, I remember
Final Fantasy 3.
It was yeah.
It was really hard. Like I just remember it being really, really hard, and I got so disenfranchised with it because it was hard. So like, I don't know about this one. Oh, and I have 15. Final Fantasy 15. I've also toyed around with the MMO a little bit, but like
I don't think I played 15.
Yeah, 15 is the one with the car. It's a bunch of dudes, and they're all like goth boys.
That's why I didn't play it. It was the dude simulator.
yeah, the dude simulator. The car is dope.
Of course, you're like, oh, I'm gonna play that.
Well, like I said, like it was just like fancy and cool, and I was like, that looks cool. And also like the combat isn't like the turn-based combat. It's more like the remake of 7. The
combat was really fucking good.
The combat is really fucking cool. You just like summon, like you summon manifestation, like energy swords and hammers. Like you just summon a weapon into your hand and you use it. Like you don't, like Noctis, he's able to do that, and I'm like, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And the Regalia, the car that you drive is dope.
I heard a lot of good things about the gameplay. It just was the moment I found out the main 4 characters were just dudes.
Bunch of dudes.
I was like, oh no.
But like honestly, like it's kind of nice. Like it's just like they're in touch with their emotions. I guess it's like not like super over the top macho, which I do like. So, and it's really cute. Yeah. Like, you know, you take every time you camp and rest, like Prompto takes pictures of everybody and you take these group pictures. It really like kind of creates this fantasy that you're like on a road trip with friends kind of thing, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good things. Mm-hmm. Although I couldn't.
I feel that. I fell off. There was this quest I was doing. I had to find a red frog. And I found all the other fucking frogs, and like I cannot find this goddamn red frog. Like any guide I look up is not helpful. So I got stuck, and so I've left that game sitting there. That's what happens. Like I get to a point, I get stuck in a game, and I'm like, just don't have time to sit here and bash my head against the wall, so I move on to something else and then I circle back.
I usually Google shit very frequently.
Yeah, it depends on my mood. Like sometimes I'm just like, ugh, annoying, whatever, bye. Or like if a game gets too grindy, and I'm like, if I have to grind for the next 30 hours just to get to the next like milestone in the game, like I don't have time to grind like I used to when I was 14.
I feel you. Holy shit. I'm just giving this game a little try right now while we wait for Scott. It's fucking fun, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it in the background.
I can, yeah.
Like, you get a fury boost after you get, like, your combo to a certain point, and because your character can't sing, she has this skull that she picks up that ends up singing for her, and, like, it's fucking cool.
I am.
Oh, this kicks ass. Yeah, I think you should give this a shot, Jay.
How much is it?
It's like a full price game. You could wait until the price comes down if price is an issue.
Yeah.
I do that for so many things.
Oh yeah, I'm like, ooh, wishlist. I've gotten burned too many times. Like, I'll pay full price for a game that looks awesome, and it comes out, and it's like fucking amazing. It looks amazing. I play it, I'm like, wow, this game sucks.
Like what happened with you and
Anthem.
I was gonna say Anthem. I was trying to remember what it was called.
Well, what also kind of sucked with Anthem is I didn't have any other people to play it with either. Like, no one else was interested in it, and it was one of those games like you kind of needed a group to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I the main reason I didn't pick up Anthem is because I had heard it was going to be a flop from everything I had seen. And I watch a lot of game channels that like review games that aren't like gonna do the IGN thing where they just give it a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 if it's mediocre, you know? Like I watch reviews who are like say like there's a gaming channel, I have to go and look it up, but they're really good. They do buy, wait, don't buy, like sort of thing, and they'll be really good about you like, yeah, you know, this is a cool game, but you can wait for it, you know, you don't need to do it immediately.
Right.
And then sometimes he'll do things like put this on your radar for things that he like sees earlier and checks it out. And
gaming's overwhelming at this point. There's too many. Like there's so like I don't want to say too many, but there's so many, you know?
So that's exactly why good games journalism has become really good on YouTube, right? Because there is so much, you really do need to be able to like rely on somebody who's like check this shit out and is going to give you a good recommendation. And I think why I don't really buy many games that are not winners is because I really ruthlessly watch a lot of videos on stuff, and if I'm just not sure at all, I'll wait, you know? But like with this one, I heard it was fucking a metal game, which is like, that's my jam. I fucking love metal. I love metal as much as I love pot. And oh god, this level's difficult. The beat's weird. And they're talking about how like Serge Tankian, you know Serge from System of a Down, right? He made an original song for this game.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah. Hey!
I was doing homework. I apologize, but I am sitting downstairs and Darian's asleep. So give me a couple minutes. I have to go wake up my partner and I have to go upstairs. I'm sorry, I'm not together. I'm so sorry.
Good. It's our late night one. We can take as long as we want on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was doing homework.
You film till midnight if we feel like it.
Okay. All right.
Like, if I can stay awake.
All right. Okay. All right. I will be right back.
Okie dokie.
Stay on. I will return.
Oh man, this game's like fucking meditation because you need to like zone out and hit the music beats to shoot.
Yeah, I would not be able to do that and also like talk to someone at the same time.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, you could absolutely do it, but you said talk to someone at the same time. Like, yeah, that is making it a little difficult to stay on beat. I'm gonna stop after this warm up.
Yeah, I was like, I could not do what you're doing right now. So respect.
I also did beat Doom Eternal on Nightmare difficulties, so
I played Doom on
easy,
so that's the difference between us.
Yeah, I am a fucking monster at video games. She ain't gonna stop now.
One day I'll be good at something. I'll figure out the thing it is that I'm good at. You know what I'm actually not bad at is Pokemon Unite. I'm expert level ranked in that, actually, so whatever.
Pokemon's a difficult game to be good at. Don't let anybody be like, nah, you're good at Pokemon. No, like, there's some shit to being good at Pokemon, let me just say. I'm gonna mute and slam out the last half of my sandwich before Scott hops on. We're getting a late start, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Welcome to After Dark, where we're unreliable as fuck.
Yeah, it's kind of our brand, though. Our brand is, like, Trash Fire.
I still have my makeup on from yesterday, which is, like, filled in over the course of the week because I had such little time to sleep. I didn't get to fucking do my makeup every morning. I just had to, like, leave it on and touch it up every day.
I love those shelves that are built into that wall right there.
Yeah, every time you see it, you're like, I fucking love it, man.
Such a nice feature. I want shelves everywhere. I need shelves. Shelves.
You are a witch.
Yes, it was. I was at a barbecue the day after Pagan Pride Day, and our keynote speaker Diana Paxson was actually staying with the person who I went to the barbecue of. So I was literally just sitting next to Diana Paxson, and she was telling me about like how, like, when you work, like when new spirits enter your life, either like they make themselves known to you or you seek them out, and like there's this moment where it's like, okay, well, we have a connection and now I need to set up like an altar space for you. Or like she was saying, you're like, don't you love it, like you just have so many spirits you're working with, but you're like, okay, listen, I'd love to work with you, but like, can you get me a table or some shelf space somewhere, because there's a lot going on. She was telling me how one of the people she knows made a, what he calls a god condo. It was just like in like those box shelves, like you usually put like the cubes, those little cube drawer things in. So he just like took that and then just made like altars for each like gods and like spirits that for all the deities that he worked with.
Oh my god.
A god condo. And I was like, I love that.
My friend Mandrake did something very similar. Hi Mandrake, if you're watching, you probably aren't, but they're a non-binary actor out here in Toronto. And I say actor because I am praying that they get a move up. They're doing BG right now because it films all about stepping stones, right?
Yeah.
Like there's never anything wrong with like doing what I'm doing before you move up, right? Because I was doing like the most basic of the basic shit.
Do you want to get into
I'm really hoping
acting? Is that what like your...
No, acting terrifies the shit out of me because it would have my face on TV and people would recognize me. Right. I'd love to get into voice acting. I love voice acting. In fact, I could compete with the actors on our TV show we're working on right now for voice acting. One of our characters I can't name because of NDA, he does a bunch of lines and I can mimic a lot of them almost identically. Like I did one of them and everyone looked at me and they're like, what the fuck? I thought you were him. And I'm like, ha ha ha.
You know, it's kind of funny. Like, I also tend to have like kind of a knack for impersonations kind of thing. I've always been curious. Something else.
Welcome back, Scott.
Hi.
That's
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh god.
You were doing your homework, you studious bitch.
I know, I'm different now. Apparently therapy also helps with that shit too.
I'm different now. Like you went away for a while, and I'm different now.
I mean, it feels good. Also, the homework's really easy. It's for the discussion half of the course, and like all she's doing really for that is she wants us. I mean, it's actually kind of cool. She wants us to practice mindfulness.
Oh, college has changed a lot.
I know. She's like, so for like the discussion half, it's like literally this was like, do a mindfulness technique and like describe a time where you do it. And of course I'm like, Every time you call on me in class, I start to disassociate. So I have to use a mindfulness technique my therapist taught to me. So I don't not exist in your class, essentially.
So I don't poof from this plane. Thank you.
Right.
Do I get an A?
Right. First part is like, because we're talking about mental health, like mindfulness and like anxiety, I'm just like, I have mental illness. So therefore I know all about this.
I'm an expert. I could just see you like in class, like you have like, I don't know, like the anxiety like chapter or something, and you're just like, I got this, guys. All right, so here's how it all starts. First, you need some trauma. Okay, then you need
Word. But you know, it's cool. Like I keep thinking that like I have this like ridiculous like false belief that like my classmates are like looking at my, which I know that they're not, because no one fucking reads discussion questions, like let's be real.
no.
But I always have this thing where they're reading my comments and they're like, he's such a whatever bit, like, you know, judging me.
You know what?
And I'm like,
I was the person who read everyone's answers though, because I'm
you would be
petty. That's how I am with like my work chats, because like everything is like text chat, you know, unless you got to get on a voice call with someone for some reason. But like everything's text, and so like I see everything. I'm just like, did you see the way that like, did you see the emoji they used in response? I'm like, who am I? It's my inner gay. I can't control it sometimes.
Is Rue going to be joining us?
No, Rue will not be joining us. Rue has the crud. Yeah. Has the crud. Not the Rona, no COVID, nothing like that. Just, you know, that fall crud.
I'm not surprised with, like, I mean, around this time, you know, where the nights are getting really crisp and then the days are like hot as hell, I'm not surprised with those drastic, you know, temperature changes. Do you guys sleep with your window open and stuff?
No, yeah. I can't open.
Well, I used to. Now it's fucking cold.
Yeah, how chilly is it up there right now, like at night?
The other night when we were filming, it was borderline getting to frost. Like, it wasn't quite there, but we were under 10 degrees.
Okay.
Canada.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lot cooler than us.
Hold on, though. I'm in Toronto. Toronto's the part of Canada that dips into the latitude of where America is. Like, if you've
like the Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think it's about there. Yeah.
The sort of New England, Massachusetts-y parts.
Yeah.
If you take Toronto weather, it's pretty much about the same as northern U.S. weather. I almost call it North America weather, which would have been like very Michigan, confusing. Come on, let's name this shit better.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many good games out right now. There's a game called Fall of Porcupine where you play as a fucking pigeon.
Oh, I saw an ad for a game of where you are a squirrel with a gun. And you rob people, but like you're a little squirrel, but you have like a human-sized gun.
Yeah.
And you like rob people.
Stray, that you play as a cat.
Yeah, we have
There's
that.
God of War fucking Ragnarok, which I have on pre-order.
Also the new game where you play as a satanic lamb and you start a cult.
Yes,
and you have to,
Cult
like,
of the
kill
Lamb.
people and reap...
I was actually
it's really fucking good, and I love it so much.
You beat me to it, Scott, because I was about to list that. They have Final Fantasy Crisis Core, which is like an interlude between the new Final Fantasy games. I actually have to buy that right now as we speak. Simply because it's the prequel to Final Fantasy 7. Like, if you want to understand how Final Fantasy 7 actually works with like Zack and Cloud and
I would
Sephiroth
like to know that because I had none of that context. Yeah.
It tells you everything that happened pretty much up to the point. No, it's $66.99 Canadian. So for you, it's like $50.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for deals.
There's awful things out there. But I was telling Jay Scott about a game called Metal Hellsinger, where your character is a soul who goes down to hell, and in hell they take the most precious thing from you, which is your voice. So she comes in with a vengeance and just starts tearing hell apart and killing shit. And like the Red Baron on the throne of hell locks her away until she escapes. and then she finds this skull who can talk for her, and she basically goes around massacring the 7 or 9 rings of hell, however many there are, and it's really cool. And they play metal music the whole time while you're doing it, and you have to shoot on the beat with it, like Crypta the Necrodancer.
That's so cool.
I know, and you
I
get
love
like
that.
Dance
one
Doom.
of your guns is literally just like a demon skull that you hold that shoots out fire.
That's
It's
what's
like
up.
a weapon shot.
Oh, I have
Man,
that.
There's so much good shit right
I have that
now.
sitting on my altar, a skull that shoots.
They also have, weirdly enough, I don't even know how they're getting popular again, but what are they? Clowns from Outer Space?
I don't know.
It's an old like I don't even know if you can call it a horror movie. I guess for the time, sure. But
like a B horror movie kind of thing.
Yeah. And but it's like really popular again, and like even like Spirit Halloween is like full of like merchandise. But they're coming out with like a do you remember it's sort of like a crossover between like Dead by Daylight and the old the Ghostbusters game where you can either be a ghost or a Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
They're kind of combining.
That's not that old. That's actually pretty new.
Oh,
that
is
came
it?
Out, like,
I thought it was
last year.
old.
Not even. No, that's quite new. In fact, I don't even know if the new Ghostbusters game is actually out even.
I don't think it's out yet.
Hella
No.
fresh. Pardon?
It's not out yet, I don't think. No.
Okay, then yeah, the Ghostbuster game is hella fresh, and a lot of people
it's like
are
those
super excited
5v1 games or 4v1, whatever it is. Like one person's the hunter and the rest are the hunted kind of thing.
Let's not get sued. We make that joke all the time.
It's actually funny you mentioned Ghostbusters. I got a book in the mail today that I pre-ordered when past me was...
Is it the book I think you're about to pull out? Because I'm pretty sure it is, but show it off. It totally is. I saw it.
The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal.
Yeah.
By
How is it so far?
J. Allen Cross.
Scott asked you, how is it so far?
Oh, how is it so far? So I literally just got it today, and I was reading it, like, honestly, while I was just, you know, like when you have an awkward amount of time to kill before you record a podcast, so you're just like, what do I do? I'm gonna read a witchy book, right? So that's the mood. I'm like 51 pages in. It's great. It's honestly what I've been looking for personally, because I know all about I don't want to say I know all about witchcraft. You know what I mean when I say that. I know everything.
You're fine.
Like, I'm well versed in witchcraft, right? So I get that part. I get the magic. But the part that I've always been adverse to is the paranormal science part of it, like paranormal investigation. Now, I have been watching a couple shows. What's the good one? Kindred Spirits, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's the only one I like.
Yeah, that's like the one, because, like, yeah, I like that one too, because they just got a good vibe. Worst try.
It's Mercury Gatorade. Drink your Gatorade.
Drink your Gatorade. But yeah, so I've been watching Kindred Spirits, and then Katie had an incident, you know, with her car, and like her car playing text from her dad. No, it was she got a new car. She got a brand new car. She finally got herself a new car. And whenever someone would text her, the car would read a text that her dad sent her. Like,
that's fucked up.
Yeah, but the weird thing was that it was one particular text, and it was, I'm trying to remember exactly the context of it, but it was something like not feeling well.
I'm trying to remember it too, because Katie texted me about it.
Because it really set me on a path. So basically, that's what kind of like set me on the path with the whole like paranormal, like blending the two. I was like, because I was very adverse to it, and I was like, do I really believe that these talkie box blinky light things, like, is it real? You know, like, I need some evidence, I guess. Watching that Kindred Spirits show kind of, you know, helped. And I understand it's a show and you can edit and whatever, but it has an authentic vibe to it that I like.
Yeah.
And then I thought back to the experience that I had in Easton with Eddie's event, and how I was very skeptical of a lot of things going on there. But that's just me, because I'm a skeptic. But then, like, Rue had that really, like, visceral psychic experience when we were in the theater, so then I was like, okay, there's actually spirits here. I just don't know if these blinky light things actually work. But ultimately, like, what this is really doing in this book is, like, it really blends all of that together in, like, a cohesive way. Because, like, what he talks about in the beginning, he's like, you know, paranormal investigators, they have all this, like, equipment and stuff, and a lot of times, like, he would get people to reach out to him and be like, hey, like, there's this haunting happening at my house or my friend's house, like, what do I do? And then usually he would be like, well, find your local kind of, like, paranormal investigators and, like, try to work with them. And unfortunately, like, what usually happens is the paranormal investigators, they'll kind of be like, hey, like, we can't really do anything about the haunting, but, like, we'd love to take pictures, we'd love to record, we'd love to poke around, but they can't solve the problem. And that's what always bothered me about paranormal investigators, because I'm like, y'all are coming in here stirring up all this shit, and then
but a
what?
witch can solve the problem.
Right, and a witch can solve the problem. And the thing is, it's like, I guess, like, I had my own witch high horse in my head for a while where I was like, well, obviously, like, the witch is better, you know, because, like, we could take care of the problem. But I was like, but no, you need both sides. You need the people that can make the connection, that understand how the contact works, and then you need the people who could do something about it. So that y'all should work together, or, like, you know, cross-train each other, because everyone's capable.
Say the difference is the witch approaches it with an almost religious attitude. Not to say that that's a bad thing, right? But we go with, like, belief structures and
In this book, there is no particular dogma behind anything.
Well, that's what I was going at. There's not necessarily a dogma thing, but we have, like, predefined ideas, right? We come in with our own theories, our own practices, and our own things that we're going to do, right? Like, if you call in a priest to deal with a ghost, he's going to try and fucking banish it, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you call in a witch, we might do something similar, depending on the witch, right? Whereas, we kind of don't document it, right? We don't sit down and go, hey, what can we record? And I know if Fish was here, she'd be frothing in the mouth. She'd be like, I document it, because I know she did ghost hunting for a while, paranormal shit. And she'd always have to be the wet blanket of the group, be like the person who would, like, go and try and find out what the reasonable explanation for all this is. And
this just reminds me of,
sometimes that's
like, a mad scientist. Like, Fish is like a mad scientist. Like, just reminds me of, like, that. Just, like, she needs to wear a lab, like a lab coat with, like, sigils all over it, like, all the time.
Yeah, but what she was saying is sometimes you'd have, like, a very reasonable explanation for it. Like, the person would be like, I always get chills right when I stand here. And then she'd look and find a fucking air conditioning duct, you know?
Right.
So she kind of had to take the piss out of it a little bit. And not all occultists are going to do that. I know some occultists who will take, like, any report and always try and find something within their beliefs or practices that it lines up with and approach it from that angle, right? Very often, I wouldn't say very often, but often enough we can overlook somewhat mundane stuff, especially depending on the type of practitioner you are. And I'm not going to throw any type of practitioner under the bus. That'll just be a substantiated statement, right? I will say that certain types are different. Like, we in DKMU for a long time used to stand the idea of results-based magic and using, like, the Grasmick formula, which is essentially approaching it as though it was a scientific lab, you know, and trying to apply the same, like, academic rigor and study that you would to any other observation as you would your occult stuff, right? Which is really, like, kind of the way to go, especially when you're trying to really deal with something like that, right? And sometimes it does take the wind out of the sails of your working a little bit much. Hang on. No, apparently I was on what? Why am I on mobile data? What the fuck?
I don't know.
Hang on. My fucking thing was just like, you've used 90% of your mobile data.
Ooh. On mobile.
Oh, this has to be an old message, because I am currently connected to my Wi-Fi, so I'm just going to come back. Hang on just 2 seconds. So sometimes we don't always apply it with the most academic of rigor that we can, and sometimes you don't need to, right? Like, if you are trying to contact spirits, and you're like, okay, and now conform to the scientific method for me, they're going to be like, fuck off out of here, right? But if you are trying to investigate something that's actively happening and give somebody like an explanation as to why these things are happening in their house, you kind of do need to take it with a bit of a different attitude, and the witch isn't always going to be the best person to do that unless they have those kind of barriers and ideas and models set up to say, hey, no, let's look through this, right? And they got to kind of apply Occam's Razor. But also, the thing that people forget is that Occam was an occultist, and Occam's Razor also says that, hey, the simple explanation is the most obvious one. So if all the other things don't line up, and the answer really that's most simple is, hey, you got some fucking ghosts.
It a ghost.
You probably got some fucking ghosts, right? Mm-hmm. So I can see 100% why the investigation angle can be really good, even though the downside is, because when I was younger, I used to watch like Ghost Hunters and all that shit, right? They can end up becoming their own worst enemies when they really, really want to find something that isn't necessarily there, and they do their best to like pump it up and be like, look at us, we're ghost hunters, we always find a ghost wherever we go. You got paranormal, we got cameras.
Like they're in like a McDonald's at like a on like a drive-through. Like there's a ghost in the bathroom. Like no, there's fucking.
Your ice machine is haunted. And then like
you want to know why the ice
like y'all.
Why the ice cream machine never works is because there's a fucking ghost in it.
An old lady slipped and died on the ice machine.
And she sued the fuck out of us.
No, she died, so she couldn't sue. She became the ghost in the ice.
For Halloween, we should make up bullshit stories, like ridiculously, like super hyperbole, like ridiculous stories, true stories. You know, this is a true story.
Scott, you laughed hard at the ghost in the thing.
I like that. That was funny. It actually, for some reason, reminded me of an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with a. I don't remember what it was. There was like an evil cheeseburger, and I hated that episode. God. I hated it so much. Oh, that's right. It was super disrespectful, but like it was some kind of like. It was supposedly. I hate even saying it, but it was supposedly a Loa in like
in a
like
burger.
Well, it was like this. It was definitely very. I trying to know, because this episode is like really problematic now, and like I'm trying to like I don't want to like give it any more time because it was super problematic and whatever. Sometimes, but essentially, like it was like a cannibalistic. Huh?
I said sometimes we got to give problematic things time so we can tear it down. So you're good. You're fine.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing is, we know it's problematic and ridiculous, and so at this point we need to just squash it.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the whole premise was like a cannibalistic Loa was like haunting like this, like I don't know where they got their meat from, and like it caused like essentially a haunted burger monster, and it like ate people. And I was like, I love Buffy. Don't get me wrong. Like I absolutely adore the hell out of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I don't know what they were thinking with this episode, but
they were reaching. That's what they were doing.
Like
they were scraping the bottom of the fucking barrel of episode ideas.
Because it was bad.
Or someone was really high in the writer's room one day and they were like, fucking haunted cheeseburgers, guys. And everyone was like, let's do it.
You know what?
Cheeseburger.
Hold up for a second. The haunted cheeseburger can be fine. Honestly, the fact that they involved the Loa in it, nah.
Yeah, not fine. Cool. Like haunted cheeseburgers all the way. That's cool, but like, nah, you don't gotta bring them into it. Come on now. Though I suppose, like, if you put like them old curses of like you curse someone's cow or like whatever, like like if you curse the cow and then you made burgers out of the cow,
like digestible curses is great. Like, if you can get someone to eat their curse, oh my god, do you know how powerful that is? That is so hard to get, like, out. Oh my god, it's a bitch. But, like,
other people taking notes, get them to eat cursed food.
A cursed bake sale.
Cursed bacon.
I'm just saying, like like
I'd be done for. Cursed bacon. I love bacon.
It's very keto. No carbs and bacon, so it's fine. It's good. You can eat as much bacon as you want.
I'm gonna go use the washroom. I will be right back. But I can hear you, but I'll be muted so y'all don't hear me doing the nasty.
Okay.
That works. Camera keeps focused.
So, I was telling Sophia through text the other night, and I'm actually curious about your experience lately. Speaking of ghosts, and I love that we're kind of using the G word here. Lately, yeah. I have been having very unusual encounters with really unusual things going on. And it kind of all really peaked at the harvest moon. The moon closest to the equinox.
Right. That just passed like a couple days ago, didn't it?
The harvest moon, yes.
Yeah.
The equinox, we still got a couple days.
Right. Yeah.
22nd. And it's been really weird. One story I feel like isn't really mine to tell because it kind of, I was there for it, but it's like friends of mine who are not practitioners.
Right, and so you don't want to be blabbing their business.
It's about their house and stuff. I don't want to just talk about their business, but let's just say I found something there, and that was a whole thing, right? And then and it wasn't just me. I could kind of talk about it loosely. Me, Darian, and my friend Richie, who I've talked about on the podcast before. He's my friend who's ceremonial magician. And all three of us, when we would go to our friend's house, we wouldn't talk about it because it never seemed like something we needed to discuss, but we would all feel a presence, like if we would have to take breaks from our game or something like that and go use the bathroom or whatever, you always felt like you're being watched, and it was never really a big deal.
Right.
But the harvest moon kind of really kicked up some stuff in a really odd way that I never really saw before. And once
like
again,
how? What happened?
I almost for whatever reason I almost feel like I'll that's a story, like I said, I think I'll save that for like
off the record.
Off the record, yeah. I don't know why it is I want to keep their business their business. They're very private people, so
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that became a thing. Still kind of is a thing. I actually have to read the house further on Sunday. They want me to like do a proper walkthrough of the house. So I'm going to do that. But and then Darian he got attacked by a spirit. He left work and he said he was fine, and he said he was standing there, and all of a sudden he said, now this is interesting, he said he felt like something sort of fell over him, like as if he was like covered by something.
Like a blanket or like a...
Now listen, right? I didn't know that was his experience, but when he walked in the door and I went to hug him, I held him back from it. I was like, what is that? And when he walked through the door, I could see through, the witch eye, if you will, see the, the sixth sense. There was like this veil over him, this dark veil that I could perceive, and
you're like, oh no, that's not good.
It was really peculiar. And of course I was like, I don't like the vibe, right? The vibe's not good. So we actually ended up having to do like an impromptu seance where like I acted as the medium, and like we had to like clear the room, cleanse the room real fast and do like an impromptu seance. He's still in his uniform.
Oh, gee.
It's like 12 o'clock at night.
I'm sure he was happy about this whole process.
He was really tired, but it was actually funny, right? Because by the end of all this, we ended up having to banish what I would consider like an actual like ghost, not like a spirit. And what I mean by that is like, because I don't like to use I don't like to co-opt words that don't belong to cultures I'm not a part of.
I actually am curious. What is your personal definition differentiation between spirit and ghost?
So spirits are people. So spirits can be anything to me, right? Spirit, I will call a deity a spirit. I will call a tutelary deity or a tutelar or a land god, if whatever, animistic deity, whatever. A spirit, I will call the spirit of a person a spirit. But where I start to realize the difference, and it's the only term that I really have. I mean, one might call them a wraith or other folkloric names, but when I call something a ghost, they tend to be the quote unquote uncrossed over, even though I have my opinions about that, but and what that means. But ghost to me tends to be a spirit that wants to feed off of your
energy
your
of
life
the living
force. Yeah. Ghost is that sort of
because
I actually
because healthy spirits, I guess we'll call them healthy spirits, the ones that have passed on or crossed on, right? Healthy spirits, they don't need to feed off of our energy like that. They are good at where they are.
Right. There's not right. And that's why I think I actually had a conversation many moons ago with friends of mine and fellow witches, and we were discussing how I throughout my witch and psychicness growing up, I've noticed that spirits, people, human souls, can get sick in the hereafter. And my my friend Ray, he said something really spot on. He said, well, as above, so below, as the body, so the soul.
Yeah.
We can get sick, so why wouldn't
they be able to get sick?
The soul get sick, right?
But everything is, but the idea is that it can be cured or remedied or reversed.
Right. So there has to and the thing is that now we don't often see. Now I would also argue that cultural context comes in, right? If you're looking at the lens of an Eastern context, in particular Japanese context, the idea of cleansing a spirit so that way it is it feels better or it behaves better or it what have you, or is less trapped by its own
maybe not as hostile or aggressive.
Right. But the thing is, I don't know if there is necessarily a context that I've read about in Euro magic. I don't know. Generally, it's protection, right?
Yeah.
It's keep that away from you. But I also think that. But then again, I could also just be ignorant of something that I'm unaware of.
Right.
There's plenty of stuff that I was not aware of throughout Euro magic that was very surprising to me. In particular concerning spirit working. I know in Scotland, I believe they actually have a bone magical device in which if you experience soul loss, they would be able to sort of gather this piece in this horn-like thing and be able to put it back into you.
Oh.
As they travel, as they travel off to find where your spirit part is, and they could bring it back in this bone-like thing and breathe that spirit back into you. So there's a lot of interesting sorry, I digress. I was going off on a tangent, but that's how I differentiate. Ghosts tend to be sick spirits that need to feed off of the living.
Right, and then you usually try and find some way to work with them to... I don't know, what do you usually do with ghosts? Do you usually just kind of banish them?
I mean...
Have you ever really worked with a ghost to heal it and help it? Or have you just...
what? I will say I haven't. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm particularly remorseful.
Right.
But
right, because in the moment you're like, whoa, you're really messing with me right now. This is not okay.
And that's the thing. The goal should be to get that spirit off of a person.
Right.
Spirit sickness in people is real, and we do have to, and there's a lot of cultural context for that from cultures all around the world. When you spend, even like for mediums and stuff like that, spending too much time amongst the dead, you know, a lot of folklore and a lot of just a personal statement has said that, you know, people feel that that you get more run down over shorter periods of time, you know, mental health, physical health, etc.
Because you're spending too much time in the other
realm, right?
Realm, like you are still in this like meat suit, and you have to function within the realm that the meat suit exists.
Right. I mean, you have to keep your feet, you know, both, I suppose, but you got to remember to keep your feet in both. You know what I mean? You can't just go too far off.
Yeah.
You know. So I did actually end up banishing this particular spirit, and then, because this weird, I don't know what the hell is going on. It happened today. Darian and I, we decided to treat ourselves to like kind of a, I don't know, like not like a date, but we went to Target and we went to Michael's.
That's what all gays do to treat themselves.
Right?
They go to Target and Michael's. You go to Target,
many gay people and
the craft store.
There were a couple. There were actually both of the other men that were in Michael's were gay, and there were so many gay queer people in Target. I was like, it's basically a safe space.
Target is a safe space at this point. Rue did not shop at Target before we started dating, and I was like, listen, you need to get on the Target thing. Walmart is a thing of the past.
Seriously, I love Target now.
It makes you feel good while you're spending all your money. You're still broke when you leave, but you feel good about it.
Yeah. But what was I saying? So on our way to Michael's, we were walking past an area that I know. It's a a storage unit facility. Where actually my mom has a unit there.
The vibe of storage unit, of storage facilities, it's just so.
It's horrible in there, and I don't know why. You know what it is when I go into this particular place. I'm wondering if it's because, as we talked about in a previous episode about liminality and liminal space, which we've had many wonderful conversations about here on the podcast.
A storage facility is totally a liminal space because,
100%,
it's stuff in
literally
transit.
Everything is, literally everything is set up to be not there permanently.
Yeah.
Right. And we were walking past it. Now, here's where this gets really weird. So Darian and I, Darian stopped for a second. I don't know. I think something was in his shoe or something. And I turned slightly to see what he was doing. You know how when someone slows down when you're walking, you look, make sure they're okay. And we both clearly not only hear but see someone. It sounded like either someone tripped or jumped down. It was weird. And we both can see this, we could see someone behind us. Out of our periphery, we weren't actually looking, and we kept walking, because we didn't think to look behind us. You know what I mean? It wasn't a big deal. Public street, you know?
Yeah.
And Darian got uncomfortable because we heard the footsteps, and then they stopped, and we looked. And now, when I say a public street, I mean it's one of these weird side streets over near the warehouse district,
kind
of
the
that
shopping,
weird, you know where I'm talking about. And near this Titanic sister ship.
Yeah, down toward the Navy Yard area.
Yeah. And no one was there. But when we both looked, it was the strangest. Now, there's nothing strange about the wind, but what was strange about it was a feeling, a sort of a chill, a cold gust of air just gently blew past us, and it had that spirited vibe, that sort of uneasy watched vibe. And I was like, and Darian goes, "You saw them, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that also creeped us out because it felt really I don't want to use the term sinister because it's way too strong, but
intense.
It felt ill-intentioned.
Like I'm watching you.
Right. That's why Darian turned around, because he started to get because we started walking, Darian turned all the way around to see, because he started to feel uncomfortable, as if someone was going to like jump us. And unfortunately, Jay, you understand, we live in a city where if you're in a lonesome part of the area,
yep, you want to find a way to 360 your head.
Yeah, you want to know who's behind you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You also want to know who's in front of you, to be completely honest. And no one was there. Something was there.
Right.
But no body, no person, living person was there. So, like, I don't know. I've been experiencing so much ghostly phenomena. It is crazy. Crazy.
I have not...
I had something kind of similar.
Yeah.
I was at work, and for those who don't know, I tend to work in really famous places because film needs really spooky spots to do cool things in. So we'll end up at
they book
areas
that are crazy fucking venues.
They book areas that are urban exploration hotspots, right? So I would list off 2 of them, but I can't until we're done the show, and I'm not bound on NDA on it, and the stuff's come out. But there's just one place I can describe. It's an old abandoned power generating station out here, and if you know Toronto well enough, you could probably take a guess which one it is. And it's so infamous, people have fucking died in it urban exploring, right?
Wow.
Because the building is not fully
up to code.
Sound. No, it's not even up to code. It's crumbling physically in spots, and they use that for film. Yeah, I guarantee you've seen film like bits that are recorded in Toronto in this building because they use it for fucking everything, right? Like if you've seen a scene where like it's an old subway or like it's a bombed out industrial building, it's probably this one actually, right? And people have straight up fucking died because they go up to the higher floors. They don't know how to gauge structural integrity. They walk over something, it crumbles underneath them. They fall down and the rubble crushes them to death, right?
Yeah.
So like people have straight up died in this building, and my water bottle got lost because the number 1 actor bought the exact same fucking water bottle that I have, little chapped about it. And all the assistant directors see my water bottle and think, oh, that's the number 1's. I need to grab it and make sure he has it. So it's happened like 4 or 5 fucking times that my water bottle is just bamfed out of there because an AD grabs it, right? That's
put
not
a sticker on it
at all. He has stickers on his. They should notice.
Should put
anyways,
like Sophia's fucking water bottle.
I planned to put my name on it, but I haven't gotten it back since it was taken. So we'll see if I ever get it back. And I'm pissed because it's an $80. It's an $80 triple lined steel water jug, right? But anyways, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that I'm looking for this thing in the upstairs that we were filming in, right? And it's really spooky. It's like walking through a Fallout game, right? And normally I'm chill as fuck with this kind of stuff. And I'm like, ba-da-ba-da, I'm the baddest bitch in the waste. I'm actively armed. You can't fuck with me. And all of a sudden I get like this creeping up on me feeling, like just chills, like a wave wash over me. I'm like, okay, who the fuck's there? And nobody's there. And it's not even like something's happening, but like that feeling when like there's someone near you and they're like moving around slightly and you can kind of hear it but you can't tell, and it's like waiting to jump out on you. And I could feel it, like I can feel being watched, and I'm like, what the fuck? And like so when I come out, I tell my coworkers and my boss, I'm like, yo, there's like, this building's fucking haunted, y'all. I can feel something up on the 2nd floor watching me when I was looking for my water bottle and turning on the work lights. And they're like, yeah, it's probably just raccoons. And I'm like trying to tell them, like, y'all, I'm from the woods. I'm used to animals watching me. I know the feeling. This isn't fucking animals. But like, God, it felt like something was just stalking me from like behind the walls, just like poking out, watching me creeping around, man. Like I felt it, and I got out of there as quick as I could. But like, I'm also over there like drawing my knife and walking around with my knife, like fucking, let's go then, bitch. You gonna jump me, ghost? I'll fucking shank you, sort of thing.
I shanked a ghost.
So
a memoir. That time I shanked a ghost.
That's actually what I was telling Scott too. Like, if you actually see an apparition, sometimes the best thing you can do is go up and punch it. They fucking hate it, apparently.
I would imagine it's pretty jarring, you know, like even if you don't have like a physical like body, like for someone to smash through you, you know, I'm sure that's got to be pretty jarring. So yeah, that would make sense.
But as we know, most hauntings don't turn into fucking full-blown apparitions and chase you around and get into physical altercations like that. So it is kind of hard to punch a ghost. But if you ever get a chance, 10 out of 10, highly recommend punching that ghost.
When in doubt, punch the ghost. It's funny you mentioned that, because like I'm really glad I have this book, because I was realizing to myself, I was like, I'm not really well versed in like psychic attacks, spirit attacks, ghostly shit. Like I'm not well versed in it, and I'm like, I really like, I kind of know the gist of what I would do, you know, like if I was under some kind of spiritual attack or whatever, you know, obviously you want to ground, you want to protect, and you know, you want to get some salt, and like I was there, but I just didn't really know like all of these really specific tools and these like visualizations, like the idea of like psychically shielding yourself versus just like shielding, like, you know, like having a circle, you know, like that's like a different kind of protective boundary, because like a circle is like, well, I've cast my circle, now I can't leave it.
Nothing can enter.
Right. Well, you know,
you can leave it, and in fact, that's what Nathame is for. You cut open the circle, and then you cut space back in, and that's what a lot of people actually misunderstand about Athames too.
Right, yeah, but the idea is like, well, once you leave that circle, then that protection isn't there, kind of thing. So like, you know, I was like thinking about that, but I realized I was like, I'm really not prepared. Like, I'm not prepared at all. Like Rue's watching like Supernatural, right? And I'm like, these guys, like, they just like run into these like crazy situations, and these like ghosts come out, and they're just like, yeah, like I'm gonna fight this ghost, and they actually like fight a ghost, you know? And I'm like, this is cool. Now I feel like I have the tools that I would need to fight a ghost if I had to.
As you can see, I touched up my makeup. That's what I was doing. I've been referred to as like a real life Dean Winchester though, because like I straight up would shoot a ghost with a salt rock shotgun if I could, or like if like I had an apparition in my house one time that like walked down the hallway, and it was like an old Chinese lady, like really old, and I was shocked to the point where I thought there was like some lady who had just walked into my house and gone in my mom's bedroom. I was like, you fucking son of a bitch. And I like got up ready to go kick her out, right? There's just nobody in there, right? And I was like, okay, cool. And it's like a tiny little basement suite with like one hallway that doesn't branch off. There's nowhere she could have gone. It's like living room, hallway, bathroom, my room, my mom's room. That's the entire unit, right? So I saw her walk into my mom's room, and she wasn't fucking in there. So, you know, sometimes it do be like that, you know. And I had another instance too where like my light bulb was flickering horror movie style at my old house I lived in. And if you've known me, I'm like a serial haunted house liver. I fucking hate the fact that I always seem to end up in a haunted house. And I'm usually like, when I'm moving into it, I'm like, this is fine, there's no ghosts here. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, every time I'm coming out of the bathroom in this house specifically, the coat rack looks like a physical person in my peripheral every single fucking time. And it scares the shit out of me. And sometimes I'm like, I think it's my roommate, and I turn around and it's just the coat rack. Sometimes I like think that there's someone physically behind me watching me, and it's this fucking coat rack, right? And oh man, it's like the house I lived in before this, like the roommates had a whole bunch of shit happening, and they asked me to do banishings in the hallway downstairs because like the people who had lived there before had conjured in bad spirits, like a fucking clown spirit that was fucking with everybody in the house and a bunch of shit like that. And one of my lights in that house started acting up, so I like, following Fish's advice, I literally told it to fuck off and die and smacked the light, and it worked. It just like stopped. It was like, okay, fine, you know. Maybe not fuck off and die, but I sure told it to fuck off and just threw hands at it. And honest to God, sometimes that's what you need to deal with it, right? And it won't work every situation, but 10 out of 10 can recommend swinging at ghosts when you get the chance.
It's like, that would never be my go-to, because like I'm a, like me, just how I am, I'm not really confrontational. Like, I'm not the first to throw hands, like, in any kind of, you know, like, that's just not my thing. So, like, usually, like, I want to investigate and talk and explore and be like, okay, why are you here? What are you doing? Like, can I do anything for you? Like, do you need help? That's usually, like, my first question is, like, do you need help? Unless you're, like, unless I'm, like, bleeding out of my eyeballs or you're, like, some crazy kind of, like, demonic shit, you know? But, like, yeah, like, usually, like, I'll just be like, do you need help? Or assistance or whatever. But lately I have not had any ghostly or any kind of activity like that. For me, what I've been experiencing is this kind of like, I feel like a window, like a curtain has been opened in my brain, in my mind, and I feel like things are coming together.
Ooh.
Yeah, I feel like things are falling into place. I also read this other, like, I'm starting to let myself live authentically of, like, how I actually am. Because, like, what has been a struggle for me, like, ever since I've been in this house is the house itself. It's a family house. So many people have fucking lived here. It has not been cleansed in between people. And, you know, I've done my own cleansings and banishings in this house, but it is an ongoing process with this house because it has just been neglected for so long, and there are certain repairs that need to be done, but I'm not doing that, but, you know, to put the money into it, and it's just like, it's like a whole thing. It's like a whole issue with this house that I've been struggling with, and, like, I've been struggling, like, I look at it, I'm like, I have to take care of this whole house by myself. Like, it's just so much, and it's so much to clean, and so much to, and I have all this, like, stuff, and I work a lot, and, you know, I would, like, the house itself was stressing me out, and then I would talk to my cousin who used to live here, and my sister who used to live here, and they'd be like, yeah, the house is cursed, the house, that's the curse of the house, like, you just want to get out, like, you always just want to leave, you never want to stay. But then I remember as a kid, this house used to be a sanctuary for me, because I fucking hated I could do whatever I wanted at grandmom's house. You know, I could stay up late and play video games with my cousin Bobby because my cousins lived here too. So going to grandmom's was a fun time. You know, I got to do whatever the hell I wanted. We used to chill in the basement. We would eat snacks and I could do what I wanted. And I could be myself. And I was like, when did the script flip? Why is it that when I was a kid it was a sanctuary, but now as an adult it's a prison? I was like, that can't be right. This is still my grandmother's house. This is my sanctuary. This is where I live now. So,
if I may, can't it be both?
A prison and a sanctuary?
Yeah, because, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, my grandma's house is the same way. Upstairs, it was exactly like you described. It's a sanctuary. You could actually be who you were. Grandma wasn't gonna ever, like, get mad at you for being a kid who had emotions. You actually got to express yourself, and she encouraged all that, right? It really was a sanctuary for us. But my God, that fucking basement. My normie ass family don't even want to go in that fucking basement or sleep in it. It is fucked. I'm talking like
it's like a
root
finished
cellar dug. Oh. It's like no. It's like root cellar basement dug in the 1940s with a hole that leads down to nowhere in the back.
Yeah.
And like exposed rafters and like things that'll fucking move on their own. I'm getting chills describing it.
Is like, the laundry
my
down
grandma's
there?
House? I think so, yeah. And
so you have to go down there.
And the thing is, even when I was growing up, we knew it was haunted. My grandma's house is seriously fucking haunted because it's like a farmhouse that's been there for like close to 100 years now. And like we had one time where like someone's sewing machine got yeeted off the fucking dresser or wherever it was and like smashed, like cupboards open up on their own. Like you just straight up get paranormal activity in that place. So honestly, in my experience, it can really be both, you know, because long family homes tend to have ancestor spirits that cling to it, right?
Yeah.
And if you aren't necessarily venerating your dead and stuff, they might get a little cranky, and there might be other stuff that happens too. Like I'm not an expert on this. Look at this, we're doing a whole ghost episode today, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, no, like it was super fucking haunted. So in my experience, Jay, it really can be both.
Yeah, like that's the thing is I haven't really experienced any like haunting like kind of activity. Like Rue had this trauma demon thing, but that was like a totally personal, separate experience, not linked to this house. Like it's really weird, but anyway, but like I'm like super exhausted like right now because I woke up, Rue was sick, so I was like helping them get all situated on the chair and set up, and then I was like, look, I need to clean and commune with the, like, I need to work with the house today. I have to do that because I work in this house too, and so like it yeah, I guess, yeah, sanctuary and prison, right? At the same time. And so I only got to the upstairs, but I like cleaned everything. Like I got rid of stuff I just didn't need, and how you just accumulate junk. And I just got rid of like junk, and I just got all the dust and like everything. And then we have this back bedroom. So the middle room's for the reptiles, front room's our bedroom, and then the back room is just like a leftover guest bedroom. There's a bed in there. Rue has their makeup stuff in there, and it's just such like an empty kind of weird vibe. And so what I did was I was like, I am going to make this like a meditation like ritual kind of room. Like, yeah, all my witchy supplies and shit is all in the basement. That's more like a workshop is kind of how I view that area down there. But like the place where I could just like, if I just want to like read a book, just like read a witchy book and just be in a witchy kind of vibe. So I was like setting up like altars in there and stuff. But like when I was cleaning, I wasn't like trying to do it as fast as possible like I usually do, because usually I'm like, oh shit, all right, I got 2 hours before everyone comes over for ritual or whatever. And I'm just like speed cleaning and shoving things in drawers, but like I actually got the chance. I was like, I'm gonna pace myself. I'm gonna drink water while I do it. But I'm gonna like pace myself, and I'm gonna just really just feel myself getting these energies in line, and also asserting myself in this space. Like I hung art on the walls in my bedroom. It's like, erotic art that we picked up at conventions years ago, and I'm like, I just haven't hung these because I'm like, oh my god, this was my grandmother's bedroom. Like, do I really want to hang like erotic art on the walls? And I was like, this is where I'm living now. This is my space, and I like these pictures on the wall, so I'm going to put them there. And it immediately just changed the whole tone of the room. Like it felt like my room, because for this whole time being here, it just felt like the bedroom. Like that's where I go sleep. It wasn't like my room. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I had something similar. I don't know if you remember, I used to have all the DKMU egregore paintings I did, right? Yeah. In 2020, I had a mental health crisis. I tried to get out of magic because I felt like it was too much. So I snapped and destroyed every single one of them, and I feel fucking terrible I did that because they were very good, very skilled. Like I put fucking like
time,
like 30 plus hours into some of those, right? Like a lot of fucking time, like a week worth of doing it, and they're just gone, including the most famous linking sigil painting. And I still feel bad about it. I have one remnant right here, you can see, that's Violet. She's the only one that survived because she was in the closet because it wasn't done enough to hang, But when I entered a new space in a new house, didn't matter how fucked the rest of the house was, those DKMU paintings went up and that space was mine, and nothing could get in. Nothing ever fucked with me in my own room when I had those up, ever, And it's almost like filling the space, right?
Yeah.
You can banish and push things out, but unless you fill something that's related to you in there, that gap will still want to fill, and you're kind of holding against it the whole time, right? So if you do want to really make a space your own, it helps to have something to replace that which is being removed,
Yeah.
Also, too, Jay, I was also thinking too about what I had said about spirits, and instead of kind of jumping to banishing or to throwing them away, if you will.
Talking about helping or remedying.
Yeah, when we were discussing that, I do also realize that within an animistic framework, we should be thinking more about, like, before we go to banishing spells and sort of offensive magic, in the context of spirit working, we should be actually asking, like, maybe the spirit is in need of something.
Yeah, or does it have a message for you?
Right, an offering of some kind, a message. Maybe at times you're just afraid of something, but just because we're afraid of a spirit doesn't necessarily mean that that spirit is malicious.
Right, because it's like we fear the things we don't understand, and when it comes to spirits, we really don't understand how it all works.
Right, and that is regardless of whether you were an occultist, witch, whatever, priest, priestess. It doesn't matter. You're still a person, and
you're still human.
Even right. So, I do think that that might also be, I suppose, from a Eurocentric animistic approach, that would be the most culturally appropriate for my tradition. Would be to kind of be like, hey, what can I give you? Like I was saying though, with the spirit that Darian came into contact with.
Yeah, what happened with the veil anyway? Like, how did you?
Right, so
we
ended up with this impromptu
like seance.
And this spirit, it was interesting. It kept like showing me very strange images. Firstly, when we sat down and I focused and I got myself into that state to perform the work, as it were, it kept showing me, firstly, it showed itself as a very almost stereotypical image of a skeleton in robes, which was odd. I was like, where is this coming from? At first it was almost comical at first.
Yeah, you're like, what is this Spirit of Halloween bullshit that you're
right. But it was interesting. So one of the things about spirits is that they have the ability to sort of impress upon you feelings, right?
Yeah, and they can also use your own feelings and your own memories and things like that.
It's a very psychological feeling with them, and I started to get a sense of fear, but it wasn't my own. It was like impressed upon me. And this is where I'm actually thankful that therapy works always. And I was actually able to use therapy and the tools that I've known to distinguish between like my feelings and like, other parts of me. And I was able to actually use that to distinguish, am I afraid or is something wanting me to be afraid?
That's really cool.
And I was actually able to use therapeutic process to determine that these feelings weren't my own. And
because people put their feelings on us too in very similar ways.
Exactly, yes. And once I did that, I commanded it in the name of the Queen of Witches and the Old Horned One. Nick Nevin for me, but they're all Queen of Witches. They're all witch queens. And as I did this and kind of uttered my commands of the spirit, I started to see this visage of a woman. But now one thing that spirits in general don't do, like spirits that I said before were like kind of quote unquote crossed over or healthy, what have you. They don't look dead. Spirits to me, they look just like people, right? They look like who they looked like in life, well and whatever. Yeah. Rarely does a spirit, almost never, I should say, does a spirit
look dead,
appear to me as if they are dead.
Yeah.
But this particular ghost, if you will, she absolutely looked dead, like a corpse,
like a skeleton,
like a living corpse, or like a walking corpse, if you will. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of know what that means in context for my psychic vision and what, like, psychic vision is it depends on who you are, like, right? Because like archetypes and certain things can play into how you receive psychic information. But
what did you make of that, of her appearing dead?
That's kind of like me seeing a spirit or a ghost, whatever, that looks dead. I tend to know that it's not rested. Right? It's not a spirit that is a rested spirit. Right. And that's, so I immediately knew that it was something that would like to be alive again. They tend to be attracted towards life the same way a moth or a mosquito is attracted to the light. They just like to be on living things, in particular people.
Maybe Darian was familiar to her. Like something about him.
I think that what it was really is with the tides changing, the seasonal tide changing, I think that there's a lot of certain nights there are spirits on the wind, and they just kind of blow through your space, and if they see you or blow kind of through you, if you will,
they'll just attach.
They just kind of, ooh, I can do something with this, you know. And what ended up happening was I really didn't. Darian was not feeling well. Like, he was actually feeling ill. So really, I wasn't particularly interested in like offering. You know, I had like a peach. I think I had like some fruit and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I was more like, you know what, I have to get this off of him.
Yeah. You're more focused on him.
I just kind of. I honestly I had to disperse her from my home and our lives in general.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that I do whenever I banish. I like to make sure that I'm not just banishing from my space, but from sort of the connections I have in my life, and like
you're severing the connection.
Right. Everything that constitutes, right? Because these spirits can you can banish them from your home, but
they'll be at your job.
One, does that, they could be at your job, they could be out like outside your front step.
Yeah, they're just sitting on your step like, oh, hey, buddy.
Careful.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm very particular when I banish. And I actually ended up just getting rid of it. And it was funny because right after, Darian suddenly like perked up. He's like, he like stretches and he goes, wow, I feel lighter. And like he gets this like second wind out of nowhere. And yeah, this thing was just.
Don't you love it when you just see your magic working?
It feels good.
It's really validating. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it is a very validating experience to be like, okay, I'm like, for me, what it is like, okay, I'm not crazy. I know that it's real and it works. I feel that way just about every time that I do some kind of magical working.
I don't think it ever goes away, and I don't think it should. It's a sense of childlike wonder that I think is important for the occultist and the witch. You know what I mean? I think that that's important. I think in that childlike wonder, I think that that's how do I put this? It's a important ingredient in what makes us magical.
Your imagination. Like, because like, just as much as it is so important, like if you're in the witch occult path, read everything, right? Read everything you can get your hands on. I always recommend that.
Good, bad, or indifferent, absolutely.
Also read fiction.
Yeah.
Read fantasy. Read things that are completely off the wall crazy, because you have to, like, magic, like, how like when you write fiction, like, you have to suspend the disbelief of the reader, right? When you practice magic, you have to suspend your own disbelief about magic, like while you're doing it. So like, I really feel like the best way for me has always been to look at things in terms of fiction, right? So like, when we talk about the cosmic glue, we talk about energy. Like, we talk about energy manipulation. What do I immediately think of? I think of Jedis and the Force. Like, that's what I think of. And really, what's the difference? Like, does it make me a child to be like, oh, you think you're a fucking Jedi? No, asshole, I don't think I'm a fucking Jedi.
In fact, life imitates art is the most reoccurring theme that I keep seeing, right? Like, art doesn't imitate life. Life imitates art. And it's because art opens up something within ourselves, right? So and if you're looking for something and it resonates with you in fiction, chances are like that says something about you as a person, that you've been looking for it and that you resonate with it, right? So it's actually really important to the human experience itself, let alone like a magical one, right? And the two are inseparable, right? So I think it's important that you draw inspiration from fiction, because it means that you're not dead, and it means that you're willing to open up your worldview and
your sense of
constantly have that
wonder
searching.
is still
Yeah,
present.
because magic isn't like a hard science. It isn't like aerodynamics where you learn the rules to it and it just works every time, right? That's why it becomes very difficult to prove it in a lab setting, because it's often very personal, right? And like, to quote Argel or Ryan Lloyd, one of the guys in DKMU, he's like the dude who made the linking sigil. He could prove magic to anybody pretty much if he was able to get the person to follow through trying to do it themselves. The crux of the issue is that they always expect somebody else to perform it like an external stimuli, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone says, I'm able to make an axe to cut down a tree, and they say, I don't believe you, I've never seen anybody cut down a tree before, and you do it in front of them, they have no choice but to like accept that you've done this thing. To refute the plain and obvious would be foolish, right? Although people certainly try. That's the Occams Razor discussion earlier. But like, the experiment was ghost cat, right? If you can get someone to believe in the fact that they have a ghost cat companion that follows them around and like shows up and does things, ghost cat always shows up for everybody. It's like a shadowy black ghost kitty, and it'll show up and be like, meow, I'm your friend. And he had like a whole process for it where he'd gotten people who didn't believe in magic to like see this ghost cat show up for them just by believing that it was like their companion and actively suspending their disbelief, right? So it can be done, but people tend to not want to actively partake in it. They just want to be a curmudgeon and have it like proven or disproven to them, much like we would with any other hard science in our very strange world that we've crafted for ourselves.
I read this. I've been reading a lot too, so like I've also been consuming a lot of like, you know, fiction and media and stuff like that. Like I watched that show, that Dan Brown book they adapted, The Lost Symbol. I watched that. That was pretty cool. That was all about like the Masons and like searching for the ancient mystery.
I've worked on a Dan Brown TV show that might come out.
It might have been that one, or was it recent?
It was back in 2020 or 20.
This might be the show. Like this, the show that I watched. It might be the show. When did it come out? Recently, like it recently came.
Is it about Langdon, the main character, who's in the Da Vinci Code prior to it, and like the opening episode has him like with a statue and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I worked on that show.
Yeah. It's a great show. It's a fantastic show. I really enjoyed it. Eddie Izzard's in it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I specifically worked on the pilot for that. I was there for the most of the pilot episode.
Yeah, it's a cool show.
What's the title of it? Because I love that franchise.
It's just called...
I don't know. I only ever get working titles.
I think like it's just called The Lost Symbol. It's on Peacock, but if you don't have Peacock, I can give you my login, obviously.
Really? Actually, no, that's not accurate. I do get full show names, but I tend to have to actually be like working on the show as an LPA. LSP, they don't always tell you, you know.
But yeah,
like, I worked on
it's just called The Lost
Symbol. I'm like, I have no clue what the fuck it was about. I'm like, Tamarack? What was that? I don't know. I just know the name of it, and I can't even find like the real. I can't even find out what the real show name was, and I've had to go to ask people like, so this show I worked on, what was it actually about? After it's like out, and I can't even fucking find it. Right?
That's great.
But yeah, no, Da Vinci show. You're talking about the show with the Lost Symbol.
Yeah, but I can't remember where I was going with it.
I'm sorry I derailed you. Sometimes you just gotta get excited because you worked on something and go, yo,
yeah, I guess I was just saying, like, I just been consuming... Oh, right, I read a book. I read another book. So my mother-in-law, Rue's mom, my mother-in-law, she recommended a book to me, and this woman, she's not a reader, and I love when people that are not readers, when they're like, you gotta read this book, it's like the only book I've ever read, and I'm like, okay, well now I have to read it, because I want to know what got you so into this book. So it's called The Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah, it came out in 93. And from what I understand, it is a work of fiction, and the gist of it is that this manuscript is discovered in Peru, in like this like ancient Mayan kind of area, whatever. and it has these 9 insights, and basically they tell us like how they teach humanity like how to perceive energy and how to share energy with plants and how to share energy with each other, and basically saying like the reason why people are so cruel to each other is because we're constantly seeking energy, and so the easiest way to take someone's energy is to exert control over them or dominance over them, and that's why we see this repeated over and over and over.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then it also gets into so like as the character's going through this journey to Peru, he encounters these different groups of people that have these different copies of, or they have copies, like they're translating it as they're going, like, oh, do you have the first insight? Oh, here's the second insight, and here's the third, and it's really interesting. So that's, and it's just like these group of people that like they're starting to understand that there is something else, there's a cosmic glue, there is energy that holds everything together, and there's things that we can't see, you know. So it's all these scientists, and of course the Peruvian government is, you know, and the church are very against this whole thing. So there's that whole kind of subplot running in the background. But really the whole point of the book, I think, is a more like, it's this guy wanted to kind of highlight his philosophy as a work of fiction, which I think is pretty cool. And one of the insights that really, like, it was sticking out to me because what it was saying is like a lot of times with the insights is like the reason why we act the way we do is because of the way that we were raised, like how our parents were to us. Yes. So like if your parents were they like break down different archetypes of people. So like if your parents were what they call interrogators, so like people that are like parents that are just like, what are you doing, what's this, but you know, the parents that are just constantly just like all up in your shit, well that turns you into someone who is aloof. Like you're non-committal. You're just like, oh, okay, you know, like you just kind of go along with whatever.
Call me the fuck out,
right? And that's me, because both of my parents were like, "What is this? Like I remember I came in one time. What are you doing? Are you doing drugs?" And I'm like, "No, I'm getting a video game, and I'm going to Katie's house." What? Are you serious right now? So, I thought about that. I was like, wow, this is like it was very spot on. And what was really neat was the insights also talked about where humanity was going. So if all of humanity can understand that, like, we have this ability, there's this energy, there's this, that, like, we should all fucking love each other and get along. They were saying that humanity, what actually will happen is that we as we gain more insight, right, we increase our vibration. And that's also been a theme that I've been coming across, like in the Dan Brown series, and then in this book, all about like vibration, and also in this, which is Guide to the Paranormal book too. I've been coming across that a lot. So
New Age.
Huh?
It's very New Age.
I don't know, like I want to research more into like where this whole vibration kind of thing comes from. But anyways, they were talking about like all these vibrations, and as people achieve these higher vibrations, basically it will allow humans to walk into heaven. Like we can just, like, we can transcend, you know, like we can just like go wherever that we want to go. And I thought that was like a really cool concept. But one of the main insights that was really cool is that it was very hopeful about the future. Like, I'm talking like hundreds, like even 1,000 years into the future.
You're making me want to get into it to actually say the shit I know, but go ahead and finish what you're saying first before I really derail this.
Yeah, so it was very hopeful about the future, saying that like what humanity will do over time is we'll realize all these things, that we're capable of these things, and we'll realize that we have to live much more in harmony with nature, because a lot of the way you perceive, the easiest way to perceive the energy is to be out in raw land, you know, nature. It takes place in Peru. So what they're saying is what humanity will do is we'll willingly decrease our population, so we won't have as many babies, and we'll come to that conclusion like as a species, and we'll basically scale back our living and have more natural, wild, and landscapes, and then technology will get to a point where all of our basic needs are automated, like food is automated, clothing, you know, like it's through an automated process, and you know, we'll kind of just live in this harmony with nature. And I really thought I thought it was cool, like the way the whole thing was laid out. And and what it really did is it just got me thinking, and and I was like, I do think that if you try and think more positively about things, or if you kind of just roll with the punches, because the whole idea of the story was like, well, what's the next coincidence that will happen? Is anything really just a coincidence, you know? So it just really made me think that like yeah, I feel kind of stuck. Like I felt stuck at different points in my life, and right now I feel like I'm at like a stuck point. I'm like, I really want to buy a house, and like I'm at that point, but I'm like, okay, but I just need to roll with what's happening right now because I can't change anything, and I just have to stick with what I'm doing. So I'm just going to work as hard as I can to make this space as positive and functional for me as possible. I don't know what I took from my reading of that book.
Yeah. So you really want me to get into the high vibration, low vibration?
Yeah, I don't know.
New Age, walk into heaven train.
I don't know.
I can explain it all. Man.
Like, I
fucking read those books.
So, like, the vibration things, like this concept of vibration, does this come from old, like manuscripts or anything that like we've discovered, or is this a new concept?
Okay, New Age did a thing. Hang on, let me hit the bong. Okay, the New Age did a thing where they kind of tried to combine science with religion, right? But they didn't just do Western religion. They appropriated religions from all over the world to do this, right? To take all of this with a grain of salt. But the vibrations thing actually has a lot of basis in actual scientific function. Everything vibrates in our reality physically, right?
Yeah.
Most of matter is actually nothingness. It's small particles that move at such a speed that they actually create permeable or non-permeable boundaries.
Yeah, like, it's just most physical matter is just a bunch of shit bouncing around.
Yes. So this wall is essentially like 99% empty, and so is me. But I can't pass through it. And I also can't physically touch it because at an atomic level, we're repulsed away from each other. Yet my emptiness touches its emptiness, and somehow I can derive sensory information about this. I can tell you it's smooth, it's cold, and it's sturdy. How the fuck does that happen? Okay, when you really get down to it on some very base levels, a lot of reality is very fucking incredibly miraculous. And that's kind of what quantum physics breaks into. And New Age texts will have varying levels of understanding of this. Sometimes they will vastly misinterpret the information and use their cognitive bias to filter it into the lens to prove that what they want to say is correct. And sometimes you get some real raw deal takes that can be actually fucking interesting. So that's why the New Age can be a bit of a minefield. You can find some really cool thought patterns in there. And there is a lot of this hopefulness and walk into heaven mentality because people are trying to do the right thing, even though comes from a very faulty place because they're appropriating beliefs from around the world without actually asking those people or including them in a lot of their discussions, right? So it is very white colonial in its practice, but sometimes they do hit some cool scientific methods with how they overlap with spirituality, right? And other people who experience trips will talk about this too, that there is really like vibrations in the universe. Like when I was very young and very sleep deprived, because I had insomnia, I could sit and just watch, and if I defocused, I could see how everything would kind of move up and down slightly. And actually, your brain doesn't truly produce a stable, like your eyes don't produce a stable image. Your brain is adjusting all the qualia inside into what you see as an image. Like everything even comes in flipped and upside down, right? So what you're experiencing as your reality is technically a very vivid hallucination coming out of your brain, interpreting all of the sensory information around it that gives it a stable environment with which to navigate the universe. It can't necessarily process everything, and it can't necessarily do it perfectly. And that's why when you do hallucinogenics, they'll open up gaps in your construction, right? Like one thing that people will start talking about is how trees will move so much differently when you're tripping, because when you look at a tree, you just see a very stable thing, right? It's just a tree. But when you're looking at it when you're tripping, you see how it's organic and it's alive. Every branch kind of like moves individually. We know plants grow, right? But it's just so slow that we can't typically perceive it. But it's almost like you can watch it like wiggling just a little bit because your brain tries to really produce this steady image, right? Because if you focus on every little like leaf of the tree catching the wind, and take in so much sensory information about this, you're not going to be able to process the car that's coming towards you and you could get killed, right? And it's a survival mechanism to do this, right? So when you're tripping, some of those filters get cut, and like you can see every blade of grass like move individually like its own unit, part of the same structure, right? You can see trees like actually breathing and moving with the wind and everything, like they have to. It's absurd to think that they wouldn't move, but like there you finally get to see it. And then when you get to see it on that level, it's almost like it recognizes that you see it and it reacts to you, right? That's why people are like, yo, go do some shrooms and hug a tree, man. You'll never have such an experience. But it's very true, right? We're very oblivious to the other living things that are going on around us, even in the green space or in the animal kingdom, right? So we do exist within these like bandwidths of how we process things, right? And what they talk about when they say lower vibration, they talk about it as just like baser instincts, like survival, like and this can be really white colonial in the way that they talk about it too, because like they describe survival and like being out in it as like basic, right? Which you can kind of see the connotations there. And then they talk about things like community or love or like empathy as being like higher up on the scale.
Yeah, it was
vibration.
In the book, in the book The Celestine Prophecy. So the way that you learn to perceive the energy is that like say you're looking at a person or like a tree. We'll just use the tree example. You're supposed to like project this feeling of love. And so like if you project this feeling of love, you're like, I love this tree, I love this world, like I love this person, then you're able to see that energy more clearly. That's kind of how they pose it in the book.
And that's where, once again, the science thing comes in at. That's this idea that you see a lot in modern psychology, or at least holistic psychology, where we talk about like the effects of gratitude. We find that there's a certain mindfulness to gratitude that exists when we find sort of acceptance in what we do have and acceptance even in what we don't. We move through those spaces in a way that's very present and mindful, in a way that's not worrying so much about what we don't have, not worrying about how we can acquire it. Just you're in the now. You're presently there with what you do and do not have. And that's very psychology, very holistic psychology, but psychology nevertheless. You find it a lot in mindfulness nature.
I've been feeling that. Like, I just been kind of, like, taking these sort of concepts, kind of, I don't know, just, like, putting it into my own head. I keep getting stuck on them. They're, like, in a loop, and I'm like, I need to be present in the now. Like, I live so much in the future in what I want, and I'm like, I need to focus on what I need to do right now. And it sounds so dumb, like...
No, not at all. I think that, well, I mean, for like what it sounds like you're saying really is that I think you feel the weight of what it feels like for the mind to be way too far in any direction, right?
Yeah.
Our minds are not designed to be so far in the past or too ahead in the future.
Yeah.
We are actually meant to be present, and that is why we experience so much anxiety. That's why we experience so much depression, disassociation, and other affective disorders, because we have a really hard time in modern age being still, being present, being not avoidant of the things that hurt, because we don't like to be uncomfortable. We're very uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, and
that, like,
that's a big problem.
for a lot of us, like, basic needs are taken care of. Like, we don't live in a society where, like, we have to go out and hunt food every day. We don't have to go and grow our food every single day. You know, we can, you know, like, we can go and obtain it. So I think, like we don't really focus on living because a lot of the basic needs of living, we have technology in place to help us with that and not think about it. So I think that's what makes us not as present.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I take a very interesting stance. When, like, for instance, have you ever heard a lot of people, especially a lot of older people, they're like, the internet, social media, you know. And the thing is that I believe that anything in excess is too much.
Yeah.
And I think, however, that on the other side of that, I'm very appreciative of social media because it's also allowed for me to interact with people that I would have never had the opportunity to meet.
Right.
And I'm really thankful for all of the opportunity it's brought me. I think when we indulge in excess, is when we start to go off.
Yeah.
When, you know, which is, of course, like on this podcast, you know, we are very staunchly anti-capitalist, and capitalism at its heart is excess, right?
Yeah.
It is the overindulgence of, and now there are many people who would disagree with that, people who know a lot more about political science than I do. However, from my personal observation as a poor person, it is a lot about excess.
Yeah.
And it's never excess that goes to people who maybe should be allowed to get some of that. You know what I'm saying?
It's just excess waste product.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, like, to talk about the book you read, The Celestine Prophecies, a lot of people have read that book and took away a lot of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to really, I mean, and you do your thing, right? I mean, it's like, you're very analytical.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like I have to, like, worry about you at all.
No, I'm not, like, gonna go vibrating off to heaven anytime soon.
Right,
so
you're not gonna start talking about, like, fifth dimension or anything like that.
So that's the other thing to talk about, though. I do have some shit to talk about on that one when you're done.
I liked the vision of the future. I like the vision of the future it laid out, though. I'm like, that's what we need to do, though. Like, we really do need to do that. We need to figure that out.
I think that on a real level, where we could actually evolve as a species to learn collectively active listening, to learn how to be uncomfortable,
and not feed off of each other, like
right,
feed into each other, like give each other energy versus taking, you know.
Right, and you mean that in a sort of a general sense, like physical goods, etc., emotionally,
all of
psychologically, which I actually agree with. I think that, you know, and of course these things can also be overly indulgent, right? Like, we have to be careful of flights of fancy, right? A sort of a wanderlust.
Yeah. Like, toxic positivity is a thing.
Right. But you are right. I think that, like, if we, in particular, once again, I only ever speak from a very American viewpoint, as it's all I know. But if we were more holistic, if we had training in, I would actually argue, start teaching young people how to be good listeners, truly, and not just, you know, teachers being like, well, we have to use our ears, you know, like that kind of thing, but actually teaching age-appropriate material to really start to instill things like active listening,
and I think
mirroring, or I forget what it's called.
I think we are in schools. Like, now, like, if you had a kid now, like, that was school age, I think, like, in some schools, like, that's starting to be a thing.
I'd imagine. I'd hope so.
Because some schools have, like, meditation times for kids.
Do. Some schools do incorporate mindfulness and meditation. And these are things that I think are important because it teaches us, once again, how to be present. Be present when you're uncomfortable. Be present when you're scared. Be present when you're happy, because not for nothing, but you can totally, hence the indulgence part, right? The excess and the effects of indulgence. It becomes very easy to slip off, to sort of disassociate, if you will.
Yeah.
When you're having too much fun, you know? Which is why time flies when you're having fun. It's because you're not very present. Now, that's, of course, okay. I do want to say that, you know, you are allowed your fun, right? Like, I'm not trying to be here like, you can no longer have, you know, so much fun that time passes you by, you know.
Right.
Obviously, please have all the fun in the world. But remember that fun and the obligations of your life are also important.
I was thinking about like excess, right? So like I think that's why we get these extremist like religions movements that pop up that are like, no, like you can only wear like black shirts and blue pants and this and that, and you can only eat vegetables and you have to pray, you know, like I think that's why these things exist, because people understand like whoa, like everything is in excess, we're doing too much, we're consuming, we need to dial it back. And so they just go to the opposite end of that spectrum and they go, well, we have nothing, we don't deserve anything, we're over consuming, we're over this, overindulging. And that doesn't work either, because then you're just starving yourself of things that you need as a person.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's like we have trouble finding a middle zone of balance, because like I couldn't even say why. It's always
we just have
me.
trouble finding equilibrium.
Maybe it's because we have so few forms of representation of having seen it in our modern society that we have to invent it for ourselves almost.
Yeah, because like we, as people, we've just been conquering and dominating, and you know, just who's top of the food chain at the time, you know, over the course of human history. You know, is it the church? Is it the government? Like, what is it? Because before, you know, 1,000 years ago, it was all the church. So
yeah,
I don't know. Something to think about. But we are coming up on like just under 2 hours. We're at like an hour and 52. I was just curious if anyone had any kind of concluding thoughts about this. I like this episode. We talked about a lot of cool shit, and I'm glad we're talking about more like magical occulty shit now. Now that we've got we're all caught up on each other's lives, what we're doing.
I would take a minute to talk about the whole walk into heaven thing, if you didn't mind. And Scott, what were you gonna say?
No, no. If you have something to say, please. I was just thinking of my closing thoughts, but you please go on.
So the whole walk into heaven thing also relates to like the trip, and like some experiences I've seen with it. Like in some texts, people talk about it as like ascension, and it's kind of like the golden buzzword in a lot of those circles, and it can be greatly misleading, and also problematic, because people treat this reality like it's not real, and therefore they don't care for it, right? And oddly enough, that's one of the biggest barriers for them walking into it on the trip, because like some people do and don't have this experience, but like I personally have had ones where it's like you're not necessarily here, you're like spinning out and seeing how truly big existence is and what you are in it and what your place is. And like sometimes the trouble and the fear can be that you won't even be able to come back here, that you might be stuck in this thing forever because you've stepped away from your physical reality. And it can almost be like you have to will yourself back into existence, sort of thing, right? And a lot of those types who haven't necessarily had that experience kind of prize it, because ultimately a lot of energy behind seeking out these type of paradigms is based on people wanting release, right? Release from a world that feels like it's a prison, because they can't bear the oppressive nature of reality, because our world is very fucked up right now, and to live under it in capitalism, it's it feels like suffering, right? And people don't want to suffer. People want to be able to step away from this. And people understand that if everything that can possibly exist does exist, they don't need to be in a place that's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, a lot of spiritual posturing in the New Age community comes from a overall underlying desire to want to escape this reality to a better one. So that's why you can see so much personality disorder and so much like emotional distancing of a lot of the tragedies in the world. And I think it's truly a sad thing, because ultimately what they should have taken away is that all of the universe is sacred, because all of it is you, and you have an obligation to make the place that you're at good rather than bad. And
Yeah,
if
instead
you
of just
want that
leaving.
dream to be, yes, and if you want that dream to be real, you can't have it elsewhere if you can't build it here first. As above, so below. Hang on, the doorbell's ringing. I gotta go get it.
Is it at this hour?
I don't know. Ah.
Oh, did you?
Let me just see if I missed messages. Nope, we're good. So yeah, as above, so below. And if you can't build that kind of reality here and build it within yourself, how are you expecting to just leave and go find it elsewhere, right?
I think about
So
that like with Philadelphia. Like this city, it just drives me crazy. It is I've lived here my whole life. I hate it. I love it. And like when I think about moving, I'm like, I don't want to go too far though, because like I still want, like, if I just leave, you know, like, what am I really doing? Like, I'm not helping the community that's here if I leave. I think about it on like that level.
Sometimes too though, you can't help your community if you stay, right? Like, oh God, here's an example with my hometown. My sister moved away for ages, right? And she's finally moving back, not because she ultimately had plans to, but because like the person who does the accounting in my family for their family business can't really do it anymore, so they need a replacement person to do it. And it pays quite well, like better and career advancements than what she's currently doing.
Oh, so
right?
she's gonna
So
like
now
come work for the family business.
Yes, both of my siblings work for my dad, whereas like yeah, it's a complicated issue. But what she's able to bring to the city and what she's able to bring to the company, because like it's a construction thing, and I'm not going to say it's like altruistic because they are taking contracts, but like my family are the people who like rebuild people's houses after they get burnt down, or put up like dikes so that the town doesn't flood, or when they go off and fight fucking forest fires in the summer. Like they do real salt of the earth community development, right? They're not people who like come in and build fucking condos and high rises. Like they put in like pathways and like river restoration projects. Like one of the ones that I worked on with them, they brought in the fisheries and like rebuilt a riverbank so that it wouldn't erode and like destroy a bunch of land. Like they do really, really good, wholesome work. And both of my siblings left my hometown and they developed skill sets that they brought back, right? And they couldn't necessarily have done that had they just stayed in the place the whole time. And you don't even have an obligation to go back to the place that you leave, because sometimes the place that you live in or grow up in can be really traumatic, especially for a lot of small town queers like myself. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to move back, right? I'm a trans woman. I might not even be able to get the care that I need there, or my hormones, or a doctor who will see me, right? And I'm kind of trapped in big cities, which is a whole thing in and of itself, which makes me very sad because I do miss being out in nature, and a lot of people don't understand that, right? So yeah, I think that you can't necessarily go and always get what you need out of being in one place for the whole of your life. And I encourage people who think about moving to check it out, because you will grow as a human being abroad, right? Like I've lived in 3 separate cities, and the amount of experience and worldliness, I mean 3 major cities, like 3 other ones aside from my hometown. It was like Nelson, Vancouver, and then Toronto, right? In Toronto and Vancouver, I've lived in multiple places on it, so you get different neighborhoods and they're very big cities, and you get very diverse experiences. And I've met a lot of people and learned a lot and grown in ways that I never could have, you know, and I have to keep doing it because that's what I need to do to be who I am and like change what I want in the world, you know. So It's a lot. And sometimes it's also right for you to stay where you're at, you know? But ultimately, we do have a responsibility to the world that we're born on, to be good to the people who are here and to be good to the planet and to know that our place is to keep harmony, right? Like one thing that is being proven right now is that Turtle Island, before settlers arrived, it was so fertile and supple with all the food and all the buffalo and all of these things because like indigenous people made food gardens in the wild. They'd plant stuff in places and have just like bounties and bounties of things to come to, and they did it in balance and accordance with each other in a way so that it wasn't like monocropping, right? Like they used thousands and thousands and thousands of years of experience cultivate their lands to be the most hospitable environment to them that they could while living in harmony with it, right? And truly, I think that is one of the best models that we can try and get to, right? Like, I don't see humans separating ourselves out from technology, but I think if we have any way forward, it's 100% the land back movement, and then letting indigenous people who have not lost all of their beliefs and structures and cultural identity, like the media loves to portray it, can show, like, well, actually, no, indigenous people don't even have an obligation with anything to do after land back, right? Like, I can't even say what would happen because that's just far too big of a topic, and there's too many different groups that would have control over their own individual regions, and it's not like a monolithic thing, right? So it's complicated, but I also do think that we could build a world where everybody gets to exist, rights aren't infringed upon, nature is protected, settlers get to stay in like the places that they're at. Like, I don't see indigenous people doing to them what they did to them, you know, but at the same time, like, native people get their land back and get to go and hunt and fish and exist like we used to prior to contact, you know? So I think not enforcing like, our worldviews on each other is the big first step.
I mean, I think, but I mean, like, so, like, with that idea is, like, I mean, I guess if everyone could, you know what I mean? Like, if everyone could live, everyone of where they are could live in, like, in synchronicity, in sustainability with the land that they're at. Like, that would be
not everyone's
ideal.
gonna want to, though.
No, I know not everyone will hunt and, you know, like, grow their own food and stuff like that, but to have the choice to do so, well, I think would be really something.
I know a lot of modern people who that is an ultimate dream, and they're just always like, man, I wish I could escape away from this like 9-to-5 grind where my entire existence is just to feed up this like huge capitalist society and fucking homestead or something.
Right, like if I've got to work 40 hours a week, I'd rather it be in my growing my own food and, you know what I mean, like doing something for myself.
Mm-hmm. You'd actually work less too if you did that.
Yeah.
Just saying. But yeah, it's ultimately that if you want to walk into heaven, you have to build it here first. The gates to heaven begin on earth, you know? So that's just my 3 cents.
So Scott, your concluding thoughts for tonight?
I was muted. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know there's so much there.
Honestly, jeez, what is there to say about tonight? Tonight went weird, in a good way, in the best way possible. You know what? I'll go with that. Don't assume that every spirit you meet that feels scary is mean. And just because you are afraid of something doesn't mean that it wishes you ill. And I don't know, like I always say, be more compassionate.
Like it. Also read that Celestine Prophecy book. That was a cool book. I like it if you can derive some cool things from it. And again, I just wanted to plug The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. Excellent book. Highly recommend. Get up. Alrighty.
A lot of people are actually recommending that book. Actually, also, Mara Starling, who wrote Welsh Witchcraft.
I want to pick that up.
I need to pick it up too. So bad.
Yeah, I need to pick that up.
But she's actually very similar to you, Jay. She had a lot of misgivings about the paranormal, and she just did a whole thing on her Facebook about it. You should go read it. It's very parallel. Her story is very parallel to yours. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, it has been awesome. I'm tired though. So we are going to sign out.
Sleepy.
Yeah. So we're gonna sign out here for tonight. This was cool doing like a later night session. I don't even know if it's even worth saying what time we record anymore. We record sometime on the weekends now, and that's what we do. So if you know what the deal is. Been here this long, you just know. You know. Alrighty.
And if you miss us live, there's always the podcast episode.
Yep. I have a couple episodes I gotta put into Buzzsprout feed, but I can get those done quickly because minimal editing. But with that, we are going to sign out and see you all in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.